Hey, it's Amy from Create Magic at Work, and welcome to the Magic Formula. I've teamed up with John Nieters from Test RX MD to bring you exactly what you've been asking for. I'm so excited to introduce you to this special series that takes you on a deep dive into experiencing life fulfillment and magical peak experiences through the lens of quantum leadership and spiritual intelligence. In this series, we'll explore powerful practices to help you embrace your full spiritual self as a leader and harness your energy for peak performance. People everywhere are seeking these magical moments that elevate their lives and work, and we're committed to delivering just that. Trust me, this series will not disappoint. So come with me and let's dive into the Magic Formula.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Magic Formula. Today, we're going to be talking about life purpose and vision. We wanted to get this out to you guys at the end of 2024 so that you guys could align with new energies and cast those visions for 2025. Make sure you guys listen all the way to the end so that you can hear about everything we have to offer to set yourself up perfectly for 2025.
Yeah, so everyone, welcome back to the Magic Formula, this amazing series that's running on Create Magic at Work with John Nieters. Every month, we bring you a deep dive into a special topic. And as you heard John say, this month to end 2024, we're going to talk about life purpose and vision. And hopefully we can come together as a community and set up a really nice vision and intention for 2025 in this episode. So John, let's start off with talking about life purpose. I feel like it's talked about a lot, or we hear about it a lot in different motivational spaces. You need to know what your purpose is. Once you know your purpose, you have more passion, you can have more vision. Tell us what life purpose or what purpose means to you as our Magic Formula guide.
Thank you for that, Amy Lynn. So for me, life purpose, it's one of those things that your soul is emanating, right? So it's something very, very deep inside you. And normally, it's easy to say, okay, just go meditate, right? Go do mindfulness practices and it will just appear, right? Well, of course, that's one method. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, from everything that I've been taught and seen throughout the decades now, is that it's going to surface regardless of what you do, because that's your soul speaking to you. So normally what ends up happening, you can either uncover it with those mindfulness practices, right? Which is probably the easy way, the path of least resistance, right? Or you can go the other road, which I've been down, as I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, Amy Lynn. You've probably been down this road too. But it's the pain, the pain points, right? It's when your soul calls out to you, and first it's, subtle. You're going to hear the whispers, right? Or so they say, of trying to gently nudge you in maybe a different direction than you're going is probably the right way to say that. But then if you don't listen, they get a little bit louder and a little bit louder. And given my past that I've already shared with you guys, which we can kind of dive into a little bit more today, with the whole prison stint, it gets louder and louder until you listen. And for me, that was going to prison. So I think that it's a very important link there between like uncovering your purpose and pain. And it's unfortunate that a lot of times it takes that pain for people to actually grow and to truly find the essence of life for them. But if you think about it, it really applies to everything. Like you hear the term like no pain, no gain, right? Like that's a real motto that makes sense. Or like if you're healing from anything, you're going to probably have to go through some pain before you get to the treasure. So it's a give and take.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask you a couple of things on that. Before we get into that, I want to share with everyone joining us and listening, when we talk about life purpose today, we're referring to this deep sense of meaning or direction that would drive you to make certain choices and actions. And something that this deep sense of meaning helps you feel like you have a mission to fulfill in the world. And I want to emphasize that because for leaders in the workplace, that doesn't have to be tied to your title or the position you have in your company. I think a lot of people can get their identity really tied up in who they are as far as like what title or what company they work for. And I think if we unpack the layers a little bit more and really get down to life purpose, it's that sense of fulfillment and that what we talk about in SQ, that inner peace and feeling like you are living your most authentic life for the greater good. And so when you talk about turning pain into purpose, part of me had a reaction to that, but I know, right? I know that this is one of the universal principles. However, one of the things that play with in my mind is there's a phrase that I've seen, you don't have to suffer to be successful. And when I'm thinking of these moments of suffering that have turned into purpose and people being able to live what their true life meaning is or mission is, that I struggle with that concept. But I love how you said, hey, you can go one way, the meditation, the seeking. I think that's like the seeker, right? Like the seeker, or you can go the other path, which is the avoider. And I think you and I might have been on that path. And I think the avoider gets redirected quite a bit because if you're going down the wrong path, something's going to come up and whack you across the head and stop you on that path and keep trying to redirect you. So, from you, John, can you share more about that pivotal moment in your life that led you to what your life purpose is, just to paint a picture for everyone listening?
Yeah, sure. So let's see, the series of events that led to the actual time and incarceration first started with an opiate addiction. And then that opiate addiction turned into, well, how do you support the habit, right? Every addict has the same problem. You either steal or you deal. I'm not one to steal. I have more of a business mind. So I started dealing. And that's what led to all of that. Now, it's like the whispers were coming to me for like certain people that were put in my path to try to either help me with a certain scenario or whatever the case may be. But I was so deep into the throes of addiction that that was all masked, right? Like I wasn't picking up on that. It was too subtle for me to either even understand what was going on, or I was just so hard headed, which a lot of, young 20-year-old guys or women probably as well can be hard headed, right? So for me, it was like, okay, what is going to be a big enough interrupter to that lifestyle? And at the time, I was, when you get into the dealing lifestyle and you come at it with capital to start, it's very addicting in itself outside of the substance. You're like a hollow shell, right? You have no real emotion or anything. You're just getting day to day. Now, in the incarceration period, though, that's a big enough break from that cycle that you could actually sit there and say, okay, I understand now, like why these actions led me here. Now, what do I do about it? It's like kind of like timeout for like a little toddler or a kid, right? So it's think about what you've done and now how are you going to correct that? How are you going to be better in the future? So then it was like, okay, how am I able to pour into others so they can see there's a better way? And it's all about that interruption. I feel like sometimes time is the best interrupter.
Was there a particular moment when you were in prison? That's what I'm curious about. Like, was there a moment? Was it over a period of time that you had this awakening or transformation? Or was it like, pow, one day you were like, oh my gosh, I understand.
I can't pinpoint like a specific like date, time, second that this happened, but I would say over the course of maybe like a week or so when I was sitting in RDC, which is kind of the sorting facility before you get sent off to whatever prison you're going to do your time in. It's a maximum security system. And I'm sitting there and I didn't have any other roommates. And I would say 90% of people that go through there, because they're jamming people in cells, you're going to have a roommate. So that on its own was like kind of odd to me, but then it's just you alone with your thoughts. And at that point in time, with just a 6 foot by, I don't know, 9 foot cell or something, maybe that's generous, but with toilet and everything in there, I really had to think about, what am I going to do with my life at this moment? And that's the first time that like I can remember specifically where I had to be present instead of like worrying about things in the future, worrying about things in the past. But that was the first time that I could be wholly present. Okay, this is what's happened. This is where you're at. Now what? And I've adopted this same mentality ever since. So, like for me, that is the one time that I can go back and reflect upon. This is when that started happening.
And how many years ago was that? I'm just curious.
So that was, let's see, that would have been 2016.
Okay. And from that moment, there's a few things that I hear when you're sharing that story. One is, no matter the space you were in, you had an opportunity to slow down. And I think that's important to highlight. The other thing I'd like to hear from you is, what came out of that? What do you feel right now is your sense of meaning that fulfills you in life? What's the direction that you've taken from that moment that is driving your choices and actions today?
I would say that it's all about perspective and being able to relate to people in any scenario, no matter how bad they have it. It's not like I'm trying to say, look, I've had it worse or better than any other person, but I've had it pretty darn bad at certain points, right? So that's how you can relate to people, and you can show them that no matter what they're going through, maybe there's a better way. Maybe you're trying to be redirected to go do something else. Maybe there's a higher calling, whatever the thing may be. Obviously, every person's situation is different, but I feel like it gave me that quote unquote superpower to truly connect with people and then kind of like guide them out of that scenario that they think is so bad that life cannot go on, or whatever, boundaries or barriers they're putting up. I feel like part of that superpower that I got in that place in prison was to first connect with people and then help them break down those barriers.
Amazing. And so moving forward, I know you've shared with me one of your something that is your mission is to help people not go back to prison, or come up with ways that people can live more fulfilled lives, as you're very successful today, as you're sharing your story and your example. I think that's pretty amazing. The other thing that I want to mention is, if we are talking to leaders in the workplace today, and I mean, I have been so busy in my corporate life, in my entrepreneur life at times, that I can't even believe I'm admitting this right now, but when you were talking about, and again, knock on wood, I'm being like facetious here, but when you were talking about being in a cell by yourself for a period of time, I was like, that kind of sounds peaceful. I mean, I have had clients literally tell me, John, I'm quoting them anonymously, obviously, but like, they've said, I'm embarrassed to say that, but I hope I get COVID so I can take a day off, so I can take a break. Like, I've had people say that to me. Like, we feel like we're in this noisy, busy daily life and we can't slow down. So what is your advice to listeners that are wanting to identify a little bit more of their soul's purpose? It's the noise of daily life.
So basically, the metaphor that I use for that specific scenario, and I've encountered a lot of people with very similar issues, is they feel like they're just swimming downstream in a river, right? And that river, the current of that river takes them left, takes them right, sloshes them around. They're just in a whirlwind of chaos, essentially. And they don't feel like they are like imprinting on their day. They're being tugged every direction, right? And that's exhausting, right? So instead of having that, that's where the reflection of like dream journaling or just journaling in general can help. So when you first take into account mindfulness practices, so take some time, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 20 minutes, however much time feels right for you. Some people are busier than others. Some people want to dedicate more time to this than others. Some, it takes a minute to surface, but every day set aside a period of time. A lot of times it's easiest when you first wake up and just sit there with your thoughts. What do you want to get out of today? Because every day that you wake up is another day that you have the ability to fulfill your own goals and dreams, right? And if you do this time and time again, day after day, magic happens, right? Your small goals and dreams that you are able to fulfill on a daily basis compound into medium-sized goals and dreams. And that can be extrapolated further and further. So maybe that's, in the quarter or in the second half of the year or next year, right? And they just keep growing and growing and growing. And then you're going to start seeing how certain things align. Like, how do these small daily wins and goals align to fulfill the bigger vision? And that bigger vision aspect is what can also be uncovered when you do these mindfulness practices. So you take that time at the beginning of your day, but at some point you have to be a little bit more forward looking. So instead of just saying, okay, like, what am I going to do today that is going to help me in my pursuit of growth, happiness, fill in whatever adjective you want there. That's the simple version. But then when you start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do over the next 5 years, 10 years? How do I want to impact people? Is it all about just stacking money like as high as you can? Or is it all about the value or service that you can be to others, which is the path that I chose to take? So for me, the money aspect just comes after you show value and service to others, because it's pretty much hand in hand. It's still a spiritual transaction when you pay for something. So for me, it's like, how do you build that value so that you can build the relationships, which is the most important part? Because in my opinion, I think that humans cannot really be happy without that human to human interaction, which is why I think it's so important that people get off the screen and go to some group activity, go join a club, go whatever you need to do to get that fulfillment in today's digital lifestyle, instead of just doom scrolling on Facebook, is what you need to do. And everybody's going to know what that is, because it's going to be different for everyone. But that human interaction, that energetic exchange, is the more powerful piece. It's not just seeing a person's face and having a conversation. No, it's much deeper than that. Anytime you engage in a conversation between two people, it's an energetic exchange. And that's also why, on the flip side of this, if you feel like you're being attacked by someone in the workplace or in any part of life, if you're being attacked by someone, if you respond to that attack, that's an energetic exchange. If you don't respond and just let it just slide off your back, you are not having to exchange energy with that person, which is much healthier. But once you acknowledge it, well, now they've got a foothold in you. And now that starts a whole argument and it throws off your whole day, right? So why let that happen? Be proactive. If it doesn't align with your goals or vision, it doesn't matter. Just let it slide off. Hey everyone, we hope you're enjoying this episode of The Magic Formula. Amy and I want to take a quick break to share something special with you.
Yes, I'm so excited. We have created a dedicated page at createmagicatwork.net called The Magic Formula, where we've curated a collection of tools and products that align with everything we're talking about here on The Magic Formula: health, success, resonance, and leadership.
And most importantly for you guys, these products we personally recommend and vet, putting our name on these products to help you raise your vibration, shift your mindset, and bring more magic into your life and leadership.
We've added the link to the show notes so you can just click on it straight away and explore some of the most cutting-edge products you can get to elevate your life and leadership.
We're excited to keep this journey going with you guys. Now let's get back to the magic formula.
I think you kind of took us into vision, because today we're talking about life, purpose, and vision. So one of the ways to slow down was intention setting in the morning or having a quiet moment in the morning that you shared. And I mean, there are no rules here, right? Like, you don't have to be like, my life purpose is XYZ. I mean, I don't think this is a conversation to set up stress or pressure with anybody that's listening, saying, well, I don't even know what my life purpose is. Like, I'm not even really sure. That's fine. The vision part doesn't come after life purpose, it can come before. You can start casting a vision. What do I want my life to look like? Doing these tips that John just shared, or I like to call rituals in the morning, where you just have this quiet moment to yourself. You know, what do I want my day to look like? What's the intention I'm going to set for my day? How do I want this to turn out? And then John, you took it to where the vision opens up to include others, right? To include groups, communities. I mean, let's keep going. Society, the planet, humanity as a whole, like the quantum leader thing, right? I took it big. But if we take it back down into just that small step that you shared, well, you shared two really. You shared intention setting in the morning. How do I want my day to go? And then you also shared, how do we have meaningful connections? Because in an age where we have so much technology and so many ways to connect, people feel more isolated and lonely than ever before. And that's because we're not having meaningful connections with people. So, really great call out for that. One more thing I want to go all the way back to is this turning pain into purpose theme or topic. I love Rumi's quote, the poet Rumi, that says, the wound is the place the light enters you. In fact, I used to have that sitting up, and it just really touched me because of some dark times I went through in my life. And I also like how you share it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like, if somebody's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to go through these dark moments to have this big awakening? No. And at the same time, we can hold both of those opposing things in the same space. Like, some people do go through these painful moments, and the wound is the place the light enters them. I look at some of these people that are just have this amazing, they're on the path, their intention setting, they're probably like super evolved souls, right? So if somebody's listening, like, I've gone through a bunch of crap in my life and I haven't felt like any light has entered my wound, what would you say to them?
Well, let me back up just real quick I love how you just put all that, but how you said it doesn't have to be this way. So I think that another major thing about, the pain being a teacher, right, is it also teaches you to be detached. So as we've talked about previously on other episodes, when you give the emotional charge to something, you're giving it life. Just like humans, like when we're born, there's that electric shock that goes into the life, and that's what gives you life. Now, making it relevant here, if you are able to be detached, then pretty much anything that happens in life is not going to emotionally charge you. So you're never going to have the quote unquote pain per se, because in life, there's no wrong decisions. There's only lessons. Okay. And you never reach the pinnacle. There's always more. You're always going to be able to learn more and more and more. There's no finish line. So if life is all about amassing knowledge or wisdom, why not prime yourself to be able to absorb and take in that wisdom or knowledge in the best possible way? And the best possible way to do that is to make sure that you're not instantly, and this is the ego's issue, instantly giving something the charge and saying, this is the way that it must be perceived. Nah, that's the ego,
So good.
right? There are other ways to perceive things. Like when two different people go through the same exact experience, are they going to have the same experience? No, they're not. They may go through the same, like from the outside looking in, they may go through the same experience from like environmental concerns. Like they may have the same physical things that are happening to them or the same person they interact with, but get two totally different things. And that's from their lens on life or their perspective. So if you're from a growth mindset, or have the growth lens perspective, whatever label you want to put there, it's always going to be about what can I learn from this situation or scenario? And how can I take this teaching and apply it to future? And that will basically prime you over time to always do this naturally. It doesn't come naturally for pretty much anyone I've ever met. Like, you have to actually be intentional and you have to actually say, okay, how am I able to better absorb this information to then better my future self in the best possible way? So things that can be seemingly negative are just redirections into positive is the way you kind of have to see that. So I want to make that note.
Yeah, what came up for me as you were sharing that is just a simple reframe, like, to bring it back to some micro steps we can take. Why is this happening to me? Instead of saying that, why is this happening for me? How can we see the gifts? And when you talk about two people going through the same experience, if one person has done the skill building in what you're talking about, because it's a practice, like you said, they can look and see the gifts in these moments a little bit easier. And so it's just a practice. Where can I see the gifts in this perceived pain, in this perceived struggle? It's all perspective, right? So thank you for flipping that around. I love that. What I was trying to be cautious of, what just conversationally with you, was like, I didn't want anyone to feel, I guess, I don't like anything being fear based. And so I wanted to make sure I didn't want anybody to feel like, oh, you only have to get purpose from pain. But then at the same time, it's all perspective. It's all the way we frame things. And if someone has experienced what they've perceived a lot of pain or suffering in their life, you know, what are some ways the listeners, us, all of us, start looking like, let's go back. And that's like our next part of our conversation, right? Reflecting on the past year. Let's go back and like look at some of these themes or some of these patterns, and what can we glean from that as gifts in our lives? So what do you recommend? How can we, if this is the end of 2024, how can we go back and look at themes or lessons from the past year and get vision, get magic from them, rather than how do we shine the light on those things?
So this is where I would basically say this is a practice that will allow you to become a multidimensional being. So you're able to have the ability to understand things that are outside of just physical interactions. Like, you can figure out energies and how you can prime situations so that they're going to lead to more opportunistic results for you, whatever that may be. Now, when we're talking about reflection, obviously there's going to have to be a journaling component there, right? Because ultimately, when you journal, it's not just like, okay, this is what happened to me, like the broad strokes, but no, it's, yes, that is part of it, but you're adding little tidbits here and there, like that at the time may be like, why am I adding this? Like, this is weird, but it's part of the experience, it's part of what happened. And those little tidbits, a lot of times you can see other scenarios that have those same tidbits that led to certain outcomes. So you can start drawing like parallels between these scenarios. And now you can see, okay, law of cause and effect. Okay, so this cause had this effect. Oh, wait, this cause over here had a similar effect. It was a little different scenario, but the effect was the same. So now I'm starting to piece things together of what causes lead to what effects. So then I can go back and say, okay, if I want this effect, let's pick from one of these causes that I know that leads to that effect, so that I know that whatever I do is going to be guaranteed to have the same effect, which is pretty powerful. Now, I think another thing too, to kind of touch back before we got to the journaling, just one other experiment that you guys can do as listeners, and it's so powerful. It's again, it's about priming your body or priming yourself or others for the outcome that you want. So try this experiment. So let's say you're traveling for work and you're in a city far from home. Let's just say, it doesn't matter what the city is. Let's say you're used to going to the gym, right? And this can be anything. You guys can completely change the scenario. So you obviously want to work out in the gym, and there's going to be a guest fee normally and the whole nines, and you don't want to have to pay the guest fee. So try this. So just like Amy Lynn earlier said, instead of having situations happen to you, they happen for you. So prime the person at the counter and say, you know, come up with good rapport and, funny joke, however you want to open it. But then when you get to the actual content, you basically just say, have you ever had this happen for you? Have you ever been traveling on a business trip and had a gym membership back home and you've just wanted to get in to use the gym here at fill in the blank for whatever local city or gym you want to say. And everything just came together so beautifully. You met an amazing reception lady or whatever their title is, fill that in, make them feel important. You're going to get them to smile right then and there because they're going to obviously draw the parallel that you're talking about them, but from a third person. So you're talking about them, but you're detached, right? So then, it's kind of a funny thing that can happen in the dating world too, because you can lead either women's or men's head to go in a certain direction and then play it on them and say, oh, well, you're the one that did that, not me, right? So like stuff like that. You can play out this whole scenario, prime them and say, wouldn't it be awesome if, it just happened for you that they just let me walk right in and I didn't have to pay any guest fee and watch what happens. I can pretty much guarantee you that if you do that in a flowy state, somewhat, and you're not too like broken up and you have confidence and you see them laugh when you clearly reference their position, they're going to let you in. You just prime them for exactly what you wanted and just led the breadcrumbs down the path and bam, opens doors every single time.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun example or fun story of vision casting or like practicing vision casting. So in the bigger picture of our lives, I also think it's a dance, right? Because who are we to know the amazing things that the universe has in store for us? So there's the casting the vision, and then there's also leaving some room for the unimaginable to appear, not being so close-fisted on your vision of what you think your life should look like, that we aren't leaving room for magic to appear that we couldn't even conceive for ourselves. As people are reflecting on the past year and wanting to vision cast for 2025, when you say go back and look at these patterns, how can we do that? Like what it's like the end of the year, we're busy, people want to knock off. They wanna go celebrate New Year's Eve. I have a journal prompt card deck, all that stuff, but what if someone's not into journaling? Can we do voice notes? How do we go back and look at the year and say, "Okay, here's what happened. How do we identify repeating patterns? And then how do we cast that vision for 2025?"
There's two sides there, right? So the first thing is like, where do you see yourself at the end of 2025? So like, you obviously have to have a destination. We just talked about you learned all these causes for a specific effect. Well, we're working on the effect first because you always want to work backwards. It's way easier to do. So with that effect, what's your goal to end up in 2025? Now, we can come meet you where you are and say, okay, well, yeah, some people don't like the whole pen and paper thing. So do voice notes, do whatever you need to do to get the information recorded in some fashion so that it can be reviewed later on. And now that we've got GPT, hell, you can even get into some of these devices like Plot AI, which I actually have right here on my desk. It's a little device that connects to the back of your phone through like a MagSafe connection, super easy. You enable it and it can take like lecture notes or can do the same thing on phone calls. And you can just let it run wild, talk. And when you talk, you're casting quote unquote spells anyways. That's the power of being a human. So when you speak, it's even more important. Or like if you are doing the pen and paper thing, you can even speak certain words that you want to put extra emphasis on. So basically what I'm saying is first have this goal, right? And then record your process along the way to get to that goal. And then you're going to see whenever you take a step that is in accordance with the goal, or maybe you take a step that at the time, maybe it doesn't seem like it's a good fit towards your goal. Now, I say that in that manner because a lot of times there are no wrong steps in life. So a lot of times, seemingly wrong steps are actually right steps in the end. They're just kind of a detoured path to get there. But along that path, you pick up some information or you meet a person or something happens that is crucial to you obtaining that goal but you don't know what it is yet. Is it a person? Is it a piece of information? Is it a method? Like, who knows what that is? But you will always, always, if you have the growth mindset, you will always take the correct decision, even when it's seemingly wrong.
I like that. It gives us grace and self-compassion if we feel like we did take move in an incorrect direction or something that was like, "Why did I do that? That was the worst decision I ever made," right? But then it gives us grace and self-compassion because ultimately there are no mistakes. We're all just living this life to the best of our ability and, trying to hopefully do some work for the greater good by tapping into our life purpose and our vision for what's to come and leave some room for the unimaginable to appear. I want to add one more thing to life purpose because I think it can sound so big and when people are just trying to get through the day, and I don't think it has to be one static thing for your whole life. I think if we peel back all of the layers of who we are, ultimately we'll find a few core values, I will call them, that we are really passionate about if we do that self-exploration. And I heard you say it in the beginning of our conversation. For you, it was connecting with individuals at a deep level and building relationships. So to me, that's purpose. And then however that looks where it, all of a sudden starts bringing money flow in. It doesn't have to be under a certain title or under a certain thing. And so I would challenge everyone listening, like, what does that look like for you? If your purpose is to spread joy, I mean, you can do that in lots of different workspaces, but like, let's start really getting down to the core of what that looks like for us and start vision casting that for 2025. So, two things I'm going to ask of you, John. After everything we've talked about, I have a ton of notes. What can we leave people with? Two small micro steps that we can all take to step into 2025 with purpose and vision. What would you recommend out of everything we've shared today?
First of all, I'm going to expand and say three things from the two.
Okay.
So number one, let's work on the reflective practice. So spend whatever amount of time feels right to you. I can easily just say take an hour, but for some people it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and reflect on the themes or lessons from this past year. And then you can write about how they align with your values so that you can carry that forward into the new year and you can see that alignment in a much easier fashion. Number two would be dream journaling. Now, normally when you dream, you're putting your body to sleep so that your mind can still go out and play. That's what REM is. That's why rapid eye movement, REM, you're dreaming, but you're clearly in an activated state, or else you would not be having these movements. And we can get into that in a whole other episode, but there's a lot there to unpack. So basically, I want to reinforce that importance of having a dream journal. And then the easiest way to make sure you do that is like just put the notebook on the nightstand next to your bed. So when you wake up, it's still fresh. Because if you do remember your dream when you wake up, you're probably going to forget it pretty quickly unless you're actually like reflectively doing something about it. So what I would say is maybe the first 5 minutes after you wake up each morning, if something comes to mind of what happened during the time you were asleep, jot it down. Boom, simple. Get it in and out quick. And then the last thing is going to be anchoring all of this for you guys, anchoring it with the concept of alignment. So you can use this affirmation or any iteration of this affirmation, but broad strokes, this is a pretty good one. So I align my actions with my purpose, my vision with my values, and my life with the highest truth. And this will help anchor all of those so that you're always priming your body. And if you do this every day, you're going to prime your body, as we talked about earlier in this episode, to have a certain outcome. So if you're priming your body with these things, you're going to be thinking in these terms, which is going to lead you along the path that you're looking for.
Yeah. Say that affirmation one more time for all of us.
I align my actions with my purpose, my vision with my values, and my life with my highest truth. And understand that every person's highest truth is going to be different. So that's why you say it in that fashion.
Thanks for those 3 tips. I mean, the reflective practice, the dream journaling, and then, anchoring everything in with the affirmation. I mean, if we use that affirmation every day, we're bound to see some shifts in 2025 for sure. For everyone listening, John, if you check the show notes, there's a form that you can fill out as well to, meet with John for a consultation, and it's super worth it. Like, I have gotten so much advice from John on so many different, energetics type things. So if you're curious, I recommend that you click on that and meet with him one-on-one. I mean, I had the biggest headache in my office for the longest time, and he recommended a really cool plant that I brought in, and it's really helped transform the air, and it was a specific plant. I just funny side story, but anyways, click on if you have any sort of energetics type questions, John is available to you. John, thank you so much for another amazing episode of the Magic Formula. What can everyone look forward to in January?
So I think a nice way to start next year, we talked about life purpose and vision here to round out this year. I think a nice, easy segue is now getting into the spiritual alignment of things and how you can optimize that alignment so that all of your energy is, instead of it scattered everywhere, you can focus that energy like a beam of light to propel you in whatever direction you're trying to go.
Love it. Love it. Because that was your 3rd tip was anchoring with alignment. And so now if we take some time to reflect on 2024, we're going to come back with the magic formula and we're going to talk about aligning all of that vision and that passion for 2025. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. John, thank you for doing the magic formula on Create Magic at Work. This is incredible. And Happy New Year. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.